It can be something else. Okay, so this is more than most places. So almost 1/3 of you actually listed your hand. What did you write the agent on? Robo? Okay. Yeah. So we have a heavy-duty user group here that actually knows what we're going to be talking about. So I'm not going to talk that much about Robo because we're going to have experts in the room. Sven mostly. Magnus as an even better one on the JSM because he works on that every day. I'm going to talk a bit about how do you actually get started with an AI. So I'm Kalle Sirkesalo. I work as the CTO of Managed Services here in Code, or in Finland actually. I'm helping customers on adopting AI in large scale. So I'm in talks at the moment with few customers about how do you actually get MCPs into use. So yesterday I was talking how do you get 2,000 individual MCP servers working, because the customer has 2,000 developers, everyone needs a personal access token because they have an Atlas and data center. We're working on getting that to cloud, but it's going to be 2 years as it happens, and now we're architecting what are we doing with that. But on the other side, there is the whole thing where we have this massive opportunity, and on the other side, we have this nothing actually works. So we're saying that like, hey, AI, everybody's super excited. You probably noticed that your managers, when you go and say AI, you get funding all of a sudden. You get like, hey, yes, let's do something with AI. And then you go in and you start doing it, and you're like, I have no idea what this should be doing. I have no idea how I'm going to create value with it. And I made this AI thing, but it actually doesn't work on our process. Because most of the AI things that you create end up being kind of looking at it from the current process and putting it into the process and trying to force the current process into a new model. And that oftentimes doesn't lead to the best opportunity or solution. So Google actually looked at the AI agents, and from their point of view, the ones that survive, so the 12% of the agents that actually survive through the process of development, start creating value, and they create massive value. So in marketing and customers experience and sales, they're seeing about 40% return on investment. So arrows going in there, return with 40% more. So 1 arrow in, 1.4 arrows out. But that's for 7% that actually survive the development pipeline. So 93% of the ideas turn into nothing, which is kind of a scary statistics. But that's because we have no idea how we're going to use these systems at the moment. Number one challenge is data privacy, security, and what are we doing so that these work properly. So when we start rolling these out, you've all probably seen these different posts that like, oh my god, I got hacked. Like you go into Lovable and you create the software and all of a sudden, oh, this software got hacked. What happened? Well, that happens because AI agents are, and AI in itself isn't, how to say, without its problems. So AI itself is exponential, and this curve over here doesn't look like an exponential curve. No, that's not exponential. That's exponential, so that's what's happening in the AI world. So that, for example, is a database called MongoDB that disrupted IT, if you remember. I'm old enough to remember, so most of you probably saw it, where we had these like amazing ASCII flow servers and we were all super happy, and then we brought in MongoDB that's going to solve our problems. That's the bug there. It actually changed a lot how we develop software, but let's not go into that. This is AI in 3 years. And it's going to be quite soon bigger than message queues and everything else. That's the rate of development. So that's from Hugging Face, which is the leading development pipeline on AI. So if you do anything related to AI agents, you end up in this place called Hugging Face at one point or another. How many of you have ended up there? No. So it's basically this epitotem of where when you start writing AI code, all of a sudden that you end up there and you're like, okay, why is this documentation in this weird place called Hugging Face? That's because it has all of these transformers and deep technologies happening inside it. So why we see AI agents stopping when we could be doing this, or code assistant stopping, or comparable? Job displacement here. So it's an actual thing. I was at one customer in Stuttgart, and their CTO came in and was like, I just came from the unions meeting. I had to promise them that we're not going to replace any work in next 10 years with AI. An actual conversation that they had to have with the union. Very German thing, of course, that works in Germany very well, but like reality is this is an actual thing that is happening and conversations are being had. In USA, reports come out that like we have replaced all of the junior positions in the companies with AI. Very scary statistics when we remember what happened when we did that with moving the work from USA to India with the tier 1 support, where none of those jobs anymore exist there, and now you import TCS or comparable to actually work on your own data centers in the USA. I don't know how we're going to do that with the LLMs, but we're going to figure that out probably also as an industry. There's a big thing about can you actually trust what comes out of the AI. So as it is just mathematical models, when we create, how many of you have put an LLM into your year automation? Yeah. So we had 1/3 of the room lifting your hand about creating an agent, but nobody actually lifted their hands on putting it independently doing something. What can I do? But mine is not in that critical for production. It's sending me messages about what happens in the process I care about. But the big thing is we don't actually trust on the AI that we made. We have this problem that we trust humans, but we don't trust the AI, which is as fickle as a human is. So you probably heard from your developers, if you've ever talked to them, they probably haven't talked to you, so you have to go and talk to them if you want to hear, that they don't really like, when the code review comes in and it's made by AI, they can immediately tell and it's really bad. And you're like, yeah, but isn't that the same thing that you're saying about Peter, a junior programmer? And they're like, no, the reality is it's the same. LLMs, AI, its problem is that it's not predictable outcome. It's the different outcomes based on whatever happened to happen in the mathematical model, same as our heads. Weird stuff happens here. How many of you think you have hallucinated in the last 6 months? Yeah. We just don't call it hallucination. We call it dreams or citing wrong sources or plagiarism or comparable, whatever happens. Then we have this real problem of ownership and control. Like most of the time, management says, let's do AI. How many of you actually have in the organization someone who has been appointed to figure out ownership or control of AI? We have one actual corporation that has thought about this. We haven't, for example, we are talking at the moment internally that we need actually someone who would run our AI workflows, internal ones. Because we're doing that for customers, but we don't have an AI champion internally that would be the guy responsible of the AI development. Now it's kind of Wild West. And that always leads to the thing that nobody is actually carrying the responsibility of taking something from beginning to the end. And then the whole thing is that like lack of business cases are real. Like most of us don't really know how much would it actually save us time if we would do this. Like if I tell you that like if we would put a Salesforce automation that calls Christopher, it would save hundreds of hours of time in a year. How would you calculate a business case for that? And I know it would save hundreds of hours because our Salesforce is complete garbage, but like at the same time I can't really quantify it. Because then they would ask me, how do I know it works? How do I know it happens? Yeah?
With ownership and control and lack of business case, there is one business case we're working on is the AI Act.
Yeah. So AI Act forces you to have this box, and it forces you to think about this box with this. But that's European Union's way of controlling what we're doing with AI. But it's basically just gluing on top of the thing recreational topics. So the reason why every manager loves AI is because they think this thing. that this used to be 2 weeks, like how many, like in waterfall, this used to be 6-month cycle. In Agile, when we talked about like releasing it, like getting things out in a sprint, we talked about 2 weeks for this. And then we got DevOps, where we talked about like, okay, let's get like multitude of releases in a day. But that meant like this cycle would just happen faster in the technical parts. But the requirements, the market discovery, that was still slow. The AI-driven development, there was no AI-driven, it was development. You might work on a ticket for a day and then hopefully get it in the production in DevOps. Now we're trying and understanding that the potential is 5 minutes from beginning of the idea to the production. How do we know it? Well, I hate the fact that vibe coding exists in a sense, but at the same time, vibe coding is showing us where AI can be. It doesn't work yet. Let's be honest, like it's garbage that comes out when you do it too much. But at the same time, it is from market discovery to production within minutes. The problem is the quality. So all of these steps here, the AI generated test automation, security compliance, and continuous releasing, all of that is still missing. Sven is going to talk about a little bit about that in a while. How do you actually get these steps in with the normal part? I think you at least had a demo about it.
Sure.
Yeah, you said that you have the coding demo.
Do I? Okay.
No. Oh, was it the Amsterdam?
No,
class? So, yeah, how we thought about it on our side is that like, okay, so you get the assistants, ChatGPT's comparables into use. You get about 20%. According to science, in the best case, when you do training, when you get people excited, you get about 20% more efficiency in the organization. It can also be minus 20, let's remember that, if you use AI wrong. But let's say 20. And when you get agentified, so you actually start removing work that people had to do, you can probably get somewhere around 2 times the speed. Most companies are not here, but I worked with one customer where we started looking at core trees. So in programming, you have these dependencies and libraries that exist in the repositories. Like think about it from the point of view that you have massive amount of documents that you have to provide to the auditor every year, and you need to change their a number and maybe a little bit of text inside it. And it's structure change in every document every year that happens, or every week, let's say that way. So what ended up happening is that they had 500 of these repositories, full of these information that had to be a little bit tweaked. So we wrote an agent that actually went in and changed those numbers a bit, so nobody had to do it manually. Sadly, they still needed to approve it manually, so the 2x actually moves back to 1.2, because you're not actually getting the benefit of speeding up things if someone has to manually go and review. Which is why you start creating orchestration platforms of things where you have an agent sending stuff to an agent that complains to the other agent. So creating feedback loops. So when we started talking about DevOps, AI, Agile, we always talk about feedback loops. How fast can we go from an idea to the customer and get the feedback loop up? So the ideology is the same. You have an AI, and hopefully it gets feedback faster than what a human can give it by having another AI talking to it. Not the prettiest thing, because then we're having 2 AIs fighting, and it can create even worse solutions at the moment. But the ideology is there, like, what do we do when we don't trust a human? We add another human to the loop. So when we create a process and we don't trust a human, we bring in another human and we say, hello, this guy will now review your work. That's native to us. Like, why do we have a hero workflow? You look for the handovers, this work moves from here to here. Well, same thing, you're doing the same thing with AI and hopefully getting it to talk to each other and improve the end result. This is maximum where I have seen something actually working coming out. Everything else is basically still pipe dream. So maybe we could actually make even more product development by integrating the design phase even faster. And maybe we could get it even further by adding the business case there faster. So this is vibe coding. This is me giving Lovable an idea and getting something out of it. But none of these actually work in large-scale organizations. This is what we can see, and this is why management is so excited about AI every time, and this is why they want to put money in there, because they can see, okay, all of those startups, all of those new things, they can really get value out of this because they can prove an idea super quickly. Because we all remember going into the management meeting first time, or lower management meeting, wherever you are, it's some meeting with a nice idea. As a young green-eyed or blue-eyed person being like, I have a great idea, and they're like, okay, and do you have any numbers to prove this? And you being like, no, I need money to actually try this out. And they're like, no, you don't get any money before you actually tell me that there is a customer for it. And then you're like, can I get a designer to help me on this? No. That's away from production. So the idea behind it is that like if we could at least prove those business ideas and we would know, hey, this is a good idea ahead of time, it would really help on moving it to these lower brackets. Because the hard part is not innovating, the hard part is finding the good innovations and doing. So how does Robo actually map here? So you have the prompting. So when you go into the search nowadays, that's Robo prompt. So then you do the agent. 1/3 of you actually had written an agent. You start actually creating agent workflows. Assuming you have an agent actually integrated somewhere and doing something. So when you add it the action/tool, and not just give it more context with the system prompt, hopefully someone else is going to explain that. If not, I might have time. And you try to get these things to work things. And then you can actually do part of this phase 3 level where you end up doing the hero automation and you have a first agent doing thing. You have a second agent in the same thread doing another thing, or you have qualitative metrics and an agent. So you've probably seen these different things where hero automation has an if sentence, for example. If it says yes, we move to this one, and there might be another agent actually doing things, or no, let's throw it away. So we use that, for example, in HubSpot at the moment. We have a qualification. Does this fit Ethicode's business case? Yes, okay, then we might actually contact this customer. No, this is some complete garbage. Okay, we don't even need to think about that. It's probably someone trying to sell us another customer list that we can't even buy from them because of GDPR. That's what happens in marketing. But ideology is that when you can have more agents talking to each other and filtering out these things, you can create more autonomy. And then the other one stays same. So I promised a short demo. Let's see if it works. So how these actually work is that these are Confluence documentation actually for Azure. And I'm not going to show you Robo. Oh, you guys can't actually see anything, so this is not really going to work. So what I usually try to show customers is that like this is an example for sake of simplification. But what you end up happening is that you have these chat messages over here, and you can change these to triggers. That's what you're doing with the automation tools. And it goes to an AI agent, which has the model. That's the GPU part. That's where NVIDIA makes money every time I call that. So every time that gets called, NVIDIA cashes in. That's good. Then you have a memory, so it remembers who am I. So if I remove that box and I ask it who am I, it doesn't know. If I tell it who I am and I have this, it remembers who I am. So it eats memory to keep a context. And then you have different kind of integrations we call tools. So in this case, I actually have another workflow which would go to Jira with my query. Let me pull it out. So it would go to Jira, and it would have another agent. Because that's all these things are, agent to agent to agent. at the end of the day, and it would use tool collection, MCP servers in this case, and it could use that to discuss with Atlassian. And now, if I would do what I do in production, I could attach this, for example, an incoming ticket, and it could go and fetch knowledge-based tickets. So this is what we do, for example, in Rovo, that we're trying to find from the knowledge base an answer to the ticket, and then do a work estimation. So my team, the managed services unit, is trying to get work estimations to customers, because oftentimes the customers are really worried about the cost. Surprisingly, who here hasn't had a cost-conscious expert? And then it tries to tell a work estimation. The AI doesn't actually have to succeed in the work estimation, because that's just an internal node. But it reminds the expert that comes to the ticket, I should at least think about these, and this looks like complete bullshit. Because when you actually see a number, how many of you had this? When you have an empty paper, it's super hard, like you're looking at it and you're like, yeah, I don't want to work on this. And then someone sends you a paper and it's like complete, like you're like, no, this is so wrong. And then you hate to write it back and you end up doing all of the work in 15 minutes that you've been fighting with for 2 weeks. Because someone made so bad of a version of it. So you can use AI that way also. That's what I often do with my engineers. So what ends up happening here is, so if I want to, I can actually just type here, hello, could you find me our Azure backups? And yeah, now it goes into the LLM, it figures out what should I do. Then it goes to the Atlassian side, and now in the Atlassian side it's calling more stuff, hopefully. Yeah, so we can see here that it's called, so every time you see a blue tick here, it means I spent money. So it wasn't that bad this time. So here it is documenting like where it is doing and what it's doing, and how do we do Azure backups. So that's how you actually make an agent if nobody knew. I know 1/3 of you actually made some kind of agent. It gets way more complicated the deeper we go, but just wanted to show you a bit. And Sven is going to show you how you actually do it in Atlassian side. Hopefully, maybe. I'm promising a lot.
I see. No pressure.
No pressure.
Right.
So, how do you actually can, like, if that's how easy it is, like, if I would draw the boxes, it takes me like 5 minutes to make a simple agent. But that's not the hard part of AI. That's not the hard part of any organization. The hard part is you have extreme geniuses in this room, for example, but like trying to get a use case or an idea from here and get a business case and approval from the management to do that idea gets really difficult. There's all kinds of weird reasons because of it, but oftentimes it's starting by we're phrasing the thing wrong, we are not validating it, we're not really pointing which one is more important. We come in with 10 different ideas, and everybody's like, yeah, but that's too many things. Tell me the top 3 things. So we've ended up doing a lot with customers where we do hackathons. So we do, for example, Roboton, where we sit down with the customer and get them actually to hands-on work on Robo. But that's just part of it. That's kind of getting the developers, business representatives, Jira super users to use Robo to get the ideas flowing in their head. And we documenting, okay, that sounds like a good idea. Let's test it if it actually works. But on the other side, you take the different kind of business leads and you sit down with them and you make a simple value stream map. Most of you probably have some kind of understanding of value stream map. We're in Germany, processes are favorites. If you don't, I have a slide coming up about it. But quick idea being, let's find the bottleneck and try to improve the bottleneck. So trying to find those problematic places where we have those things. And then you combine these two and you create an actual exploring workshop. we are showing these were the use cases we came up in the Robothon or Hackathon or comparable, and these are the places where we are attacking those things. And after that kind of work, we can make actual roadmap out of it for the management and get some resources out of it. It doesn't mean we would be doing it, but like that's the kind of thing that you end up doing anyway. So part of the innovation process. If you did an MBA, you had to read about the innovation process, and you probably were like, yeah, why would I care? No, none of my managers care. It's because of these kind of things. So value stream mapping looks like this in waterfall situation. So you have your customer doing a request, and then it goes all the way to production. And you're trying to find every box that goes into the way, and it gets quite complicated, but super simple. Red boxes are manual steps. This is what it starts looking like in your usual day-to-day corporate life. And this is what it starts looking like when you start putting it into a software development pipeline. And again, red boxes are manual steps, and I think over here the blue box said hours to days, daily and weekly. So we have weekly steps, so they take a week to complete in worst case. So that might be a bottleneck or it mightn't be. We require kind of thinking. But the actual value that we generated in the system at the history was over here in the value creation. And everything else in here is validation steps by our process. So then you start asking these questions, okay, so why is this process here? What are we doing here? Can we automate that? Or can we make something to help it? And that's when you start finding those use cases that match on the problem that is being said. So, common thing, code review is a thing that developers do to each other. So, as said, when you don't trust in one person, you add another. That happens to be code review. So when a programmer writes code and they push it, another programmer reviews it and complains about it. And in banks, you add another one still, because you have this 4i principle. So then you have 3 people reviewing the same code and talking about it. It has worked. It has significant performance gains, but at the same time, all of that is a quality gate that we have built to give us feedback about the system. Where AI is actually pretty good at giving you feedback. So what ends up coming out of the workshop is something like this. So you have a backlog, this is our actual backlog, of topics that we collected, so use cases our engineers came up with. We went to prioritization, and we did every manager's favorite thing. So we put the thing into an impact versus time. How much investment do we need to put? Every manager loves these 4 squares. And then you throw these 2 lines there, and everything on top of in the top right corner, on your side top left corner, is the one thing that we're going to be doing. Everything in the middle is nice to have. Everything outside of the lines, yeah, we can just throw it to trash can, we're not going to ever make it. It gives you kind of nice idea of what are we investing, and showing the management this is how we came to here. You don't actually have to show them what was in here, but they care about how did we qualify that these are the ideas. And then you can show these are the topics, why we're doing it, and this is what we're going to get out of this. So you don't spend time on explaining topics that they don't care about. Yeah, did the food arrive, Magnus?
Yeah, yes, sir.
So then, at this point, I have 10 minutes. If you have questions, I'm happy to take those, but I can also let you go early, or we can go into the details of how AI actually works in mathematics. That's probably not what people are interested in compared to food. No questions. Everybody hungry? Or do you want to hear some mathematics and matrices and vectors? Yeah.
Maybe on the adoption part of role or any AI topic, for example, in an enterprise level, the bigger challenge is always you should know your different businesses.
Yeah.
Because a company can have different business units, and in terms of adopting an AI approach, what would be your advice or a strategy to form an adoption plan so that we can roll it out on an enterprise level, just on a brief level? I know it can't be answered
on a brief level. So what I usually do is in every change organization or like getting something on road, you need to have a champion team. So first of all, find a team that is super excited about AI and get their hands into AI. That way you don't end up in this situation where nobody's interested. You have to have these guys that are super loud, they're really excited, and they're like, AI is going to save everything. Because those are the champions that you need across the organization long term. And you need to enable them at the beginning. So they need to have something that works and they can show this is what we helped ourselves. That's the beginning of, I have so many slides about that in another day. So that's the key for beginning any transformation. You need to have the early adopters and they need to be enabled. After that, we can start defining who are the next things based on the use cases. So then you start figuring out how do we create cross-organizational teams. So you don't want to bring only developers together. That's kind of the challenge when we do innovation work oftentimes. You need to bring people from all around to actually think about, hey, you are actually blocking me. And the other guy is like, no, we're doing this because of this. And then you start finding, hey, this is actually not that great of an idea that there was this blocker, but we did it because of this, and we have now a solution for this. So most of innovation and speed up comes by people talking to each other and finding out, oh, this is really stupid that we're doing it this way, we could actually be doing it this way. So connecting those dots and creating use cases around that. So for example, in many big organizations, we have policy team and security team. Well, policy team gets its money and security team gets its money from the business owners. The business always pays everything, but the business keeps complaining that these guys are not doing the thing, but they are not doing it because they don't get the funding. There are other complex topics oftentimes related to this, but the question then comes, okay, if these three organization parts, one business and these guys would sit down, they would understand, okay, we should probably do this and this is how we could be better. For example, if the security is if you write us the requirement with the these policies in mind, we can auto-approve you basically. Because most of the time, my engineers in our R&D wrote to our security, we need to open this security hole. And that was all the info they sent to our security. And then they came crying to me and were like, the security said we can't do this, Kalle, that we needed to do. And I told them, okay, show me the ticket. I saw the ticket and I was like, so you don't have context. Why are we doing this? You don't have what we thought about doing around this. And you're not actually thinking about them on how can they say yes. You're just giving them, we need to open this security hole. It ended up being hey, we want to do, for us it was iframing a service. So we can add an SSO login to the service, because otherwise you couldn't, and force it that way to be behind strong authentication instead of basic authentication, username and password being that. So leading to a higher security overall, but having a security hole in the system. And the security was like, yeah, sure, but this is fantastic compared to the previous system that you were using. But they didn't have the context, same as the AI wouldn't have the context if you don't give it. So having these people talking about these things when creating use cases can lead to very quick solutions that are easy to put on enterprise level. Really hard to explain without material, but it's the usual standard change. How many of you know about standard change? 2 people, 3 people. Standard change is auto-approved in most organizations. Most organizations have no idea that it is standard change in the bottom, and they're complaining about the change management process because everything goes change approval board and it always takes a week to get approval. And then I ask, what are you changing? They say we're adding disk space, and I'm like, that's a standard change in our process. And then it can auto-approve when you send a request this way. And ServiceNow actually, or Jira Service Management, auto-approves those when you do it correctly. One place where you can use Robo, auto-approving things. So, kind of again, finding these things that people don't know, because most people haven't done all of these steps. Same as most people don't know that ISO 27001 controls, for example, you don't get them from a box. They don't come to you and be like, hey, here's the box of controls that you implement. Here's the policy, define how do you control it. Like, if you go to banks and they are like, we have this policy that prevents it. It's not the policy that prevents it, it's the control that the bank itself defined. But most people haven't ever worked on a policy to control to audit. But anyway, really deep topic. Happy to talk more about it. I think people are really hungry.
We will send out the PowerPoint slides also to everyone, and the short version of that long answer would be in one of the slides that you got there with managed fears. You need to have a ownership. You need to check out the legal stuff.
I think I have.
You have it way up, and that one.
This one.
Exactly.
Yeah, you need to control these boxes.
So I would start there actually, because if you don't have ownership and control, it's like when you did back in the days with RPA, robotics in production. Somebody needs to own the bot, the robot out there that do things. This is the same thing. But now we got robo. Everybody can create a robo agent that does things with automation and all that. Well, not the automation part, but you can do really strong things. Now, who owns that agent? Somebody needs to update it, maintain it, and set a governance structure around it.
But it's not only that. Like, who actually decides what are we doing? Because we have so many ideas immediately when you start thinking about this.
Yeah.
And
the reason I asked that question is one is that, and two is when you have an enterprise with different AI topics. For example, somebody uses Copilot, somebody has their own AI team who creates agents by creating integrations with different teams and different platforms, and then you have platforms like Atlassian who has their own version of AI. For example, with Robo. What is the platform, or what is the tool that you're going to roll it out on an enterprise level? So because everybody is comfortable with something, but you have to have one standard, right? So that's why I was getting
maybe in the beginning, because it's been like a grassroots thing. Everybody's working with everywhere with AI, and maybe you have merger acquisition, another company comes in, and then you have again split image of the whole platform. So maybe I've been working with a bank. They have their integration team became part of it. They were actually taking care of the AI bit also, because they saw that, well, we need to integrate with all the LLMs that we have out there, or transition them into some, like you said, like one platform thinking.
But there is no one platform thinking also, because green boxes here, management, developer, operations, security are personas. So when you do product management or product development or anything like that, you always think about it from persona point of view. We have people that are taking this into use. And then you have problems that they're having. Management having, like, most of us, why are we using AI? Better meeting notes. Like, guaranteed most of you are probably doing that. I'm doing that. Document creation. I need the baseline of the document so I can start editing it. And summaries. But then you look at the developer. He uses it for code assistant, pull requests, CI/CD fixing, maybe incident management. And what it looks like in reality, this is still in progress, but like, you have different products. You have like Office 365 Copilot for certain things. You have Robo from Atlassian to certain things. And you have, like, for example, the bare minimum LLMs for application itself doing things. And then you have like GitHub Copilot, for example, in the developer side. It depends on where that person sits in the organization, what are they doing. Someone might have all 4 or 10 or 20 different tools, because their job just requires different AI tools. Like, for example, you would be using Salesforce AI, HubSpot AI, Copilot or Duo or Comparable. I have a Robo in use, I have Gemini in use, and that's my normal day. I end up using multitude of AI tools because they are good at specific things and good at doing specific topics. So when I want to do stuff in Jira, for example, I always pull out Robo. Because why would I do something in Office 365 against Robo, Atlassian data when it has worse integration there? Because the data framework is different. Do you have the picture about the data framework, or do I?
Which data framework do you mean?
Your graph there.
The teamwork graph?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So teamwork graph is kind of like a thing from Atlassian side, but every one of these products has their own same idea, which is why you will end up having multitude. And then the question becomes, where is each of the people sitting and who needs license to where?
Another thing to mention in this context is not the knowledge management and all the information that is scattered all over. So there's actually I'm going to mention them because they're always talking at our conferences. It's Elkjøp in Norway, Elgiganten, or it's like Mediamarkt. So what they did, they had like 300,000 knowledge articles, and they used AI to rewrite them and update them. And they came down to I don't know how many, but they reduced the amount, and they were updated, and they were moved to cloud, and then they can use Robo on top of it, like a system. You can ask questions to it.
But now it's time.
Yeah.
It's 12:30.
Exactly.
Yeah, we need to. We're in Germany, like, you know?
Maybe, Kalle, you're maybe the only one enforcing
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
You know, everybody can come in and talk to us during the lunch. But I might also be hungry. I woke up at 3:45 your local time today.